What is going on, everybody? Your McLaren's Peach Up World Champion coming at you with the in-depth guide of how we're going to beat Enel, and different kind of starting screen put together because this is going to be a different type of sort of breakdown than the Sakazuki video, because going against Enel and yellow decks in general can't really gauge and use like the same kind of statistical probabilities of their deck that you can against like Sakazuki. Just because yellow decks, their winning condition involves luck, and like the only way they can win is if they get the life triggers. So can't really like prepare to go against that, which is like why it's such a tough matchup, because there's so many factors just out of our control that you can't really determine. So that's why we're gonna do a different little approach. We're just going to focus on the things that we can control and then go from there. So that's why different screen. I got 3 different like builds, just variations of strategies of like more aggro through like control type stuff, and just kind of like different setups and stuff like that, because try to show you guys it doesn't really matter which build that you're using. I don't really feel like there's one set build, because again, against yellow it's just RNG. So there's not really stuff you can prepare for, and just because the fundamentals of yellow, like overall yellow decks are fundamentally bad. They're just very top heavy, and if they don't get the life triggers, like the vice versa, they auto lose. Like if they're not able to stall you out with the life triggers, especially Enel Katakuri, you're gonna beat them. But the annoying thing is just the life triggers that they do have are just so powerful, and that's what makes it tough, and especially against Enel, because our deck isn't really built to go long. So if things go past like turn 6, we pretty much lose against anyone. But with that, we're gonna dive into and focus on like the strengths of RP Law, and how just enhancing and focusing on those strengths can help you beat Enel a bit more consistently. And yeah, but before we get into that, the most important thing I think with RP Law is learning the other decks, especially the other top decks, and it just gives you know what to like look for and what you need to do for any kind of future games, and it's what helps me and has helped me make the most progress. So depending on what kind of like learner you are, if you're like a visual learner, obviously you can just like go from like looking at stuff. But if you're a more hands-on learner, which in certain things like I am, what I've done to make so many, I feel like, steps forward in progress to RP Law is straight up make the other decks, make an Enel deck and play it. Like learn how Enel and stuff operates, learn the cards and stuff like that. Because with RP Law, the most important thing is you just need the knowledge of the game. It's also what makes RP Law probably like one of the hardest decks to use, is because you do need to put in the time. But to put in a lot more time with RP Law to learn the other decks, because we just straight up don't have any setups to go to like any of the other top decks. We thrive on taking away the setups of other decks, and to be able to do that, you have to know like what you gotta be able to take away, what their key cards and stuff are. So honestly, yeah, if you're new to RP Law and you like are committed and you want to make gains, like you just have to put in the time to learn like all the other decks to know what to expect and stuff like that. But with that, do the best I can here, and let's go into the anatomy of the Enel deck and give you guys some like pointers and stuff to everything of like what to look for. All right, so we're gonna start with the stuff that we can't control, which is Enel's life cheese, the trigger cards that they need to hit to win the game, especially early on, because fundamentally, again, yellow decks are top heavy. They are not good. Like turns 1 through 4, they're just very bad. They have to make it late game so they can continuously drop their high Don cost characters. But the way that they get there, and why it's super annoying, is they have a bunch of cards that can help them out. So going into playing against Enel, you might not see all of these, but you'll see a combination of Enel running these cards and how they work. Like Satori is a 2k counter. The only time they will ever so you'll see Satori is if they get the life trigger. Besides that, it's just a 2k counter. Same with Wimpy Hoshi. It's just kind of the 1k, and gives them the card draw if they hit the life trigger, but it is what it is. And then with the event cards, L4, you normally don't have to worry about like too much with the life trigger. Like the only time that is really strong is like very early in the game, but besides that, with our normal setups, you don't really have to worry about that. It's just like the counter they sometimes run. Bruley, obviously the blocker, which is annoying. Like if they got it like late game, like on their last life, and you're trying to set them up, it's a bit annoying to deal with. However, though, if you play like attacking first before removal, it's in range for us. It's only 1,000, so we can get rid of that. Amaru is normally they'll only use the trigger if it's like desperation mode. Besides that, it's just going to be used as just the normal event ability. And then same with like Shura. Shura is like their only early game option with the search, and then obviously if they get the trigger, they'll play it for free. However, the 3 cards on the bottom are like the ones that are the worst to see, and especially if they get multiple. There's certain things, and depending on the timing of the game, you'll just straight up lose, which is like the most annoying thing. Like I've lost games against Enel, like they hit 2 Thunderbolts in their life on me, and it's just like, it's really frustrating because you get you get things set up, you're doing everything right, and then just because of the life lottery, you just lose because they're able to hit the random stuff. Same with like Sanji and Capone. Like Sanji, early game isn't too bad because normally again, if you have things going, you attack first, they get Sanji, then you can remove, like depending on the flow of the game. Or even if they get Sanji, like normally we'll have the removal to get rid of him later on. Because again, that's like their only blocker, that and Bruley. Like besides that, attacking them is free. And then the only other one that's super annoying is Capone, especially like late game, just because of the ability is choosing like one of your opponent's leader characters. And it's super strong in Enel, just because of Enel's leader ability of them being able to stall things out. And for us to beat them, we have to like kind of set things up. And if they are able to just nullify one attack, it makes things harder because you have to hit Enel for that extra time. So these are the cards though. Overall, like vice versa, a lot of the triggers that they have are like kind of dead cards, especially like Capone and Satori. Like there are 2k counters unless they get the life trigger. They will not play the cards. Besides that, they just sit in hand. So depending on the stage of the game and depending on how many of those they get, it's kind of beneficial too, especially early game, because it just lets us set up the board for free if they have most of those, and then we can keep up the aggression and stuff and go from there. Okay, so how does NL beat us? The only way they can beat us is if they're able to stall out and extend the game. Using those life triggers that we just talked about is like their only way of getting to this point for them to beat us. So overall, with their leader ability, they start with the 4 life, but they're technically at 5 because there's like no shot they would not use the leader ability when they get down to 1. So you need to just by default, you need to have it in your head that you have to hit them 6 times, like minimum. But the annoying thing is, every time they drop like the Katakuri or Yamato to refill their life back to like keep it at 1 or more, them at 1 life is technically at 2, so you have to hit them 3 times. And that's why it's so hard, because if you aren't prepping for that and thinking ahead of how to set them up to go for like the lethal like move, you're gonna lose. Because if you just give them the time to stall you out, and especially if you hit them the 1 and then you're not able to hit them down to 0, like if you go for that, that is probably like the biggest mistake I feel like you should never do, is unless you're super confident you can get them down 2-0 and win the game, do not attack them just like when they're at 1, because it gives them the potential, like whatever that card is, the life trigger, but then they're able to bring in another card, so they're back at the 1, which could be another potential life trigger, and then your following turn, you still have to hit them like 3 times, so that you just give them the extra opportunities for life triggers. So you super want to limit that. And basically, their game plan is they need to hit the life triggers to keep like the board like manageable. Like they need to keep us under 2 characters on the board, and that's why they need like the Thunderbolt life triggers, stuff like that, and prioritizing board control, because if they're able to extend things out past like turn 6, they're just going to be continuously dropping these high down characters, and they'd be dropping the Yamatos turn after turn, or like Katakuri, so they can like refill their life regardless. And obviously we don't have any boss cards, so we can't really trade out. So once they get like too much set up, we just lose. So that's how they beat us, is just trying to extend things out, because again, that's our weakness against everybody, is games that go past like turn 6, we don't have like a great shot of winning, just because we're built as the strongest deck. Again, early game up to turn 4, like RP Law is just kind of untouchable. But however, going for like the fatal stuff, if you're like burning out, then it's very, very not great, especially against Enel, because they're built to Enel strengths is just perfect for like our weaknesses. It's just the perfect counter of they're built to stall things out while we need to win kind of like quickly and overwhelm people. But yeah, that is their plan though. They need to hit the cellular life counters that we just talked about to be able to extend to turn 5, turn 6, and so on, so they can continuously drop all of their high down characters, and then they'll just then go for like 9k attacks. We can't really block out of that, which is pretty much kind of the GG's, but that's their setup. That's how they have to win. Again, it's luck based, so that is their only way, because if they don't get the life triggers to stall out the game, then things we're about to like discuss, if you play like this, you should be able to beat them. But before we get into like the RP Law setup, the stuff we can control is what I also want to focus on, because it's very important, because the things you can expect, their options are super limited, especially early game, because they need to hit the life triggers. Again, all the cards that we talked about, like Capone, Satori, they're not playing. Those are 2k counter cards in hand. They're not character cards. The only options that they really have early game is turn 1 and 2 is the Shura search card. That is it. And then after that, if depending on where they're going, Gadatsu or Ohm Holly is like their mid game play. Gadatsu, obviously, we can take away its ability if you drop your life, like if they hit you down, especially if you're running more 4 costs. As soon as you get hit down to 3, you don't have to worry about Gadatsu, which is pretty cool, because Gadatsu is like the only kind of thing. But however, what you to look at and get the info reads early game, it's not like, I haven't run into it super a lot, but so you can like prep for what is in their hand. And if they do have Gadatsu in opening hand, and especially if they have both Gadatsu and Yamato, they're not going to attack you at all. Like, they're going to leave you at 4, and then they're going to try to just keep you there so they can keep up board control, because again, we need to get out like multiple characters to set them up to beat them. And if they're able to keep us at like 2 characters or less, then they'll beat us, especially if they're able to stall things out. So if you're playing against NL and they don't attack you, then the info to take from that is that they have minimum Gadatsu, potentially both. So that's just card info in their hand. However, it's also safe to assume then vice versa, if they then do attack you, because like their turn 2 game plan is if they don't have the search, they kind of have to attack you, because they don't have any cards that they can play turn 2, especially if they're going first, is they won't be able to play any, so they have to attack you straight up. So if they do that, then attack you, then you can kind of get the knowledge, at least at that time, they don't have like Gadatsu, and then Yamato's like potentially, but Yamato's like getting played to a late game anyway, but they definitely won't have Gadatsu if they do attack you. And then with that though, the only dangerous play that is hard, that makes things harder to deal with, is if they're able to get Ohm and Holly out. And why that's tough is just because it's 2 cards, and weakness for us is playing against decks that can chain summon. Same with like Sakazuki is we only get to use our ability on 1 card to bottom deck them. So if they're able to get out multiple cards, that is just a little bit extends things for them, because then we need to use our resources to get rid of one of them, like that turn, our next turn, but then the following turn, then you need to like attack or like remove the other one, keeping up with whatever else they're playing. So that's the only thing that makes things like tough that I've experienced. But however, that is like their only plays, like turns, especially turns 1, 2, 3. That's like all they got. They're super one-dimensional because again, the yellow decks are just super top heavy, and they're reliant on needing to hit the life triggers. So that's kind of like their only good plays are involving like Omahali and Gadatsu turns like 1 through 3. Like if they can play the search, if they're going second, they'd want to drop the search, and then after that they want to go Omahali on turn 2 and then Gadatsu turn 3. However, though, if you get the option, I'd definitely say probably take second, because then you super limit their options like tremendously, and then they only can hope for life triggers to extend things. But yeah, that is all they got. They can't really do anything else. The only other cards you'd see is maybe they drop the Sanji blocker or the Brulé blocker if they have that in hand. But if they're doing that, that means things are looking good for us, because that means that's their only options of stalling things out, is if they drop the blockers that's assigned to you to let you know that they don't have these cards to be able to like throw out. And later on in the games, all these cards from turns that they played turns 1 through 4 become counter cards, because they have to drop the boss cards or they're gonna lose. So that is kind of like their only plays. The things to expect going up against them is this combo of those cards. Like that's all they got, and if they don't get that, then they have to hit the life triggers to beat you, like straight up. But obviously though, yeah, Omahali for me personally just is like the toughest one, because it just makes their ability to stall a little bit better, and then especially if they hit multiple life triggers, it makes it very, very hard, because having to deal with all that is pretty overwhelming a lot of times. But again, it's luck based. Everything is RNG depending on their life, but at least in the early game, this is what to expect of their best plays. Like this is their best stuff they could do, and if you don't see that, then just logically expect that they don't have it, which is normally great news. Alright, so let's jump into what we gotta do. Opening hand, if you're running Sanji, like tech card, is literally only for this matchup, so that's what you're gonna want to look for if you're counting on Sanji. So if not though, the most important thing for me is getting ramp cards, because I think ramp cards are even more important than Sanji, just because of being able to consistently flood the board. And then it also, depending on where you're going, like if you get the option, I'd say go second, especially if you have like predominantly 4 cost characters. Like going second is absolutely elite. If not, if you go first, you're still gonna want like a combination. Ideally, if you're going first, you want to use like your ability at least to get somebody out on the board. And if you go first, you have 3 costs, play that. Use your ability. If you can bring in the boys, that's the like most recommended. If not, any of the other ones work as well, because we want to build board control, and you want to go just super wide and get as many characters on the board as quickly as possible. And key things though, especially ramping up to ace or kid and queen blockers is massive, because it's just ace allows you to remove whatever they're gonna have on the field, especially if you go second and you can drop ace turn 3. It's nuts. And then if not, setting up blockers is also big against yellow in general, because it allows you to contend and keep up with potentially like things stalling out. And kid and queen are massive because they're at 6k. So 6k blockers like kid and queen are pretty big in this matchup, because them being at 6k, and because yellow decks are technically like Don dependent, especially later in the game when they need to drop like their 7 cost or 8 cost or 9 costs, they're normally dropping those, and that's all of their Don. So if you're able to get a kid or queen out, especially early, then they can't use their leader to attack you or anybody on your board, because they have to drop their high Don characters to extend the game and keep things going. So if you have a kid blocker set up, that just completely protects your entire board. Like straight up, then it'll be super freaking out and stuff like that. However, if you like playing more aggro, I love being able to ramp up to Ace, dropping Ace, wiping their board. Those two characters are essentially just gone. And then Ace is just 7k, and versus like the same thing. Again, they have to use up all their Dawn, dropping their characters, meaning they're not going to be able to attack Ace. And then Ace is just on the board as a 7k threat for the rest of the game, who you can use for kind of anything. And it's super, super good. So opening hand, what you're looking for, obviously if you're running Sanji, you probably, this is again the matchup that Sanji's in here for, so you want that. If not, and for me way more important, getting the ramp cards, because being able to consistently use Law's ability, especially in the early turns, to just flood out the board so you can manage board control, whether you can continuously remove them with your power reducers like Gordon, or if you need to use characters to attack, like being able to get as many characters out as quickly as possible, and just continuously doing it is very, very strong. Alright, and then continuing off of that, prioritizing board control, the most important thing. Straight up, you need to protect your characters on the board, whether that's using Otama or later on Sanji or Rad Beam. You need to use those to keep everybody on the board, especially if you drop your Kid and Queen blockers, because if they launch an attack, if you're able to keep them up, is massive and game changing, and the more characters you can keep on the board, the better for our end game. So straight up, prioritize the characters and going from there, because it's just great being able to keep your characters on the board, because then you're able to, no matter what they kind of throw out, either then use your power reducers like Gordon, Fire Fist, like Film Law, stuff like that, get them in range to remove, and then be able to just keep getting bodies out, because we're able to just keep attacking them like over and over relentlessly. But also too, using your counters to prioritize characters on the board, because how I view it, while it's nice to keep your life like right around that 2, I view the game is if we're not winning by turn 6, we're gonna lose regardless. And for us to meet the win conditions, I'm fine if they attack my life normally, because it gives us the cards in hand. And again, for us to meet our like win conditions of beating them, you just need as many characters out on the board as possible, and it doesn't really matter like what your life is at least for me. So if they want to attack my life, I'm normally fine with it. However, then it allows me to use my like all of our counter to keep the characters on the board, which I think is way more important, just because preserving the life board is like your life cards is like not as important at all in this matchup, versus I feel like it's just like a thing you normally, I feel like, stresses people out, is playing around like low life. But in this matchup, how I view it is, if we don't have the characters out to beat them turn 5, turn 6, we're going to lose regardless. And so I just go off of that. Again, I try to set things up for them needing the right stuff to beat us anyway. So yeah, just being able to prioritize board control, continuously wiping their board with power reducers, or using your characters to attack theirs, especially if they get out like Ohm Holly, stuff like that, is really big. And if you need to play it, like, don't be afraid to use your power reducers as well to drop their guys down, especially if they're rested, and then just attack them with a character or leader. Because if you're wanting to preserve Don to drop like another kid or get up to Ace, that is also totally fine. Because again, we just want to prioritize board control, and so they can't attack our characters. That's like the #1 priority in this matchup. So the other thing throughout the game, though, you need to adapt to what's happening, and this is the toughest thing because the RNG aspect. So always attack first, just because you don't know what life triggers they're gonna get, unless you need to set up like Kid to get the that active down back. That's like the only scenario I'd say where you shouldn't just attack first, because lets you know you then can respond to the life triggers. Obviously, the biggest one why attacking first is big, because if they get Thunderbolt, they can just blow up anything for free. That's the most annoying one. So attacking first before you kind of drop anything is big. And also too, then if they get like a Sanji blocker and stuff, you can then react and remove it as well. So just focus on like what you can overall control, and just play. And you just have to adapt to kind of what happens. And continue the game plan and everything regardless of what like life triggers they get. Like obviously it makes it tougher, but you still need to continuously build the board, because again, coming off in what our deck is built for is playing against like Sakazuki. So we have the knowledge against Sakazuki where we're expecting to like lose 1 to 2 characters a turn. So being able to, how we adapt to Sakazuki and continuously overwhelm them with putting bodies out, that's what we're built for. And even if they get the life trigger cheese, as annoying as it is, just keep pushing, keep putting the pressure out, flooding out the board with characters. Because again, no matter what we do, we can still set them up before they get like too many high down characters for the end game. So just keep pushing and keep like focusing on doing that. Like you just gotta be able to bounce back from whatever like random shenanigans they get, and not like let it affect you too much, because it is frustrating. And I've definitely been get like certain things that they get, especially Thunderbolt, is just really annoying to deal with. But even if they get that, you just gotta kind of keep up going and keep pushing, putting out the characters, especially if we're able to abuse Law's ability in this matchup. It's huge. Like going and dropping like 2 characters is just really massive. And then being able to just think ahead for setup turns, especially going up against them, is the biggest thing as well. Like if they don't get any life triggers, then you know their options of what they can and can't play like the next turn. Especially early game, again, they only really have Gadatsu or Holly. So if they don't get the early life triggers, then that's all you would expect to like see. So then that allows you to kind of plan ahead for like their limited options and go from there. All right, so how do you set up the end game? Biggest thing is attacking in waves, and you need to go as wide as possible. The more characters you have on the board, the better your chances are of beating them. However, though, you need to be sort of methodical with this. Is you need to just steadily attack their life. However, if you get them down to 1 life, if you are not confident that you're going to be able to win the game, just end your turn. Do not attack them. Do not give them any extra opportunities for the life triggers. Like straight up, depending on the stage of the game, you get them down to 1. Even if they play Yamato next turn, it's fine. And it's way better to have to deal with that than if you attack them and they're able to just like counter out. Because we also need to, like, the other most important thing is hand control. The cards in their hand and the way that their deck is built is super top heavy, and depending on their build, they're gonna have about 40 to potentially like 50% of their deck will not have counter. So if you're able to keep up pressure and especially make them like need to use counter cards, like if you're able to set up a turn where you attack them, drain them all the cards in their hand, like the counters, then your chances of winning the next turn is very, very likely, just because again, like 40% or so of their deck, like all their top heavy guys, like any of the cards that they run that are 7 costs or higher do not have counter, and also their event cards don't have counter. So their options are very, very limited, and they can, again, if they don't get the life triggers, their hands are very bricky, and they don't run defense besides like the Sanji blocker and then potentially like Bruli. And that's like great for us, because if you're able to keep their hand relatively low, their options and like the percentage chances of them having like a bunch of counter is very, very low. Because even if they have a bunch of counter, then vice versa, that means they don't have their boss cards to drop. So if you're able to go just as wide as possible, just continuously use Law's ability if you need to, depending on your deck build, throw out the bodies and just blast them down. Because then if you get them down, ideally 2, if you get them down to 1 life like on turn 4, their only options are then turn 5 they like have to drop Yamato to go up another life, or like drop Katakuri, and then if they have like a cheesy like Wimpy Hoshi or something like that on the board, that's kind of like all they can do. But it puts them in the situation where they have to do that. And why that's just super massive is it just lets you be able to set up for the next turn. And if you're playing around that and get them down to the 1 life, like straight up again, get them down to 1 life turn 4. And if you're not confident, like especially if we only have like 1 or 2 more characters, just straight up end your turn. focus on protecting your like the characters that are rested on your board, and then your next turn, even if they drop Yamato, it's great because again they're down dependent, and if they drop their boss cards, that means they can't use Enel, their leader, to attack like very high. The max they potentially be able to attack with is 6k. So if you're able to counter onto that, because then they have to attack your rested characters with Enel, like the turn they drop Yamato, and it just gives you that next turn to go for it. And especially depending on what's in their hand, even if they drop Yamato, go back to 2 life, you still have a great shot to beat them, especially if you're able to flood out the board, because and like prioritize board control, because they're only gonna have like Yamato out, and then you're able to wear them, and then wear them down to the 1, get them down to 0, go for game. But even if you don't win the game and get them down to 0, that's massive as well, just because then it puts the pressure on them. Again, they have to drop another boss card the next turn, meaning then they only going to take out one of your guys with like the Yamato or Katakuri they drop, and then they're going to attack with a low level attack with the leader again. So it's kind of like the same sort of thing. But again, the best way for me to set up endgame, the more characters you have out, the more likely your chances are you're going to beat them, just because being able to be relentless and take advantage of the weaknesses of their deck, like playing around. Again, if they don't get the life triggers, if you go as wide as possible, just abuse Law's ability if you need to. Get as many characters out on the board. Like, there's nothing they can do. They're not built to withstand the pressure like that. And especially just, again, turns 2 through 4 is kind of where you need to be able to take advantage of that. But yeah, being just as many characters down, end game minimum 3, I'd say, like to feel like safe and comfortable. Because again, when they're at the 1 life, you have to hit them 3 times. So you need 2 characters minimum and your leader. So that's why it's so hard to beat them. But that's at least how I approach it. Setting end game is just being methodical, chipping them down steadily. Because again, the cool thing is that we're kind of chill with is they have to hit life triggers to win. So even if you attack them like 5k and stuff, more than likely they're not going to counter on of it, because they need, especially early game, to get those like life triggers to be able to have any shot of stopping us from just getting 5 characters out on the board by like turn 3. So that's what we're able to take advantage of. Like, make it so the only way they're going to beat you is luck based, like RNG life trigger based. Like, just straight up, if that happens, then so be it. It's GG's. But that's like, just make it so that is the only way they beat you. Like, just straight up, if they don't get, and then vice versa, if they don't get the luck, then you're gonna win. And that's what just taking advantage of the fundamental weaknesses of yellow decks is. We just want to push and take, and then just furthermore the advantages of our deck with being able to get out so many characters so quickly. And that's just how you're going to beat NL. Again, it's like the life lottery and stuff like that. But if you're able to get as more characters out, the better, the more chances and more likely you're going to win. And then just be cognizant of their abilities and stuff too. Never attack them. If you only have 1 active character and they're at 1 life, do not attack them ever. Like, do not give them the extra opportunities to get more like life triggers. Alright, so hit the summary, the cheat sheet of everything. Early game, board control. Again, if you have running Sanji for like the tech in this matchup. Or for me, I want ramp up. Going second is preferred because their options are already very limited. Again, if you make them go first, that means they can't drop the surge turn 1. They'd have to drop it turn 2. And vice versa from there. You put the insane pressure on them for turn 3, where they're going to be at 5 Don. They either can do Om Holly or Gadatsu. Like, that's it. Like, they only can do one or the other. And it just puts a lot of pressure and just helps us extend that. Where going second, I feel like, especially if you're running more 4-cost characters, you just have way better likely shot to beat NL. And going second, because again, they're super one-dimensional early game. Their only plays are hitting lucky life triggers. If they don't hit the life triggers, Om Holly and Gadatsu are like the only threats, like the only playable cards that they have. And outside of maybe the rare like Sanji blocker, but that is that's it. That is their only options. And so yeah, going second I feel like is the better. And also too, going second, especially if you're running like Film Law and stuff like that, you're able to remove and go from there. It's super, super good. But yeah, the golden rule is how we win against everybody is just continuously managing board control is the most important thing. And the cards that allow you to do that, like, don't be afraid to play a little patient if you have Kid or Ace, especially going second. If you drop Ain turn 2, then you're dropping Ace turn 3. And Ace, for me, in any matchup, if I'm going second, I'm dropping Ace turn 3. I don't lose because you're just auto wiping. Ace has 2 Gordons built in, and then is a 7k threat. So no matter what, you're wiping something off the board, and then you're also able to use Shambles, like Law's leader ability. So you bring in an Ace and someone else, and it's just massive, and you're just straight up going to be very, very hard to beat if you do that. If not, though, again, touching on things earlier, why Kid blocker is so big is taking advantage of their weaknesses because they are Don dependent, especially late game. If you have Kid blocker set up or like multiple, they will not be able to use like launch leader attacks at all. And it's super good to be able to yourself be able to withstand those, like the game stalls is because again, if they're going first, turn 4, if they have a 7 cost like Rush Enel or like the Big Mom, they drop that. If you already have a Kid blocker out, then they can't attack. They straight up can't use their leader to attack any of your rested characters. So it's just Kid and Queen blocker is just a massive threat to protect you to late game. And also just Kid's abilities just so strong compared to us with getting that extra down back, allowing you to then attack or like save it for red beam, like etc. It's massive. So taking advantage of just the weaknesses, like don't be afraid to be patient if you need to get things like set up, if you need to drop Kid, because again, I view it, we need to win turn 5, like latest turn 6. So if they're gonna attack your life, it's fine. Like straight up, don't worry about it. Like that gives you just more cards to be able to continuously flood out the board anyways. And regardless, for me, again, if we don't beat them by like turn 5 or so, then we're gonna lose anyways. So even if you do protect your life, it doesn't really matter. So that is the biggest thing for at least how I address this. If they're gonna attack my life, I'm totally fine with it, unless it's like obviously like a weird end of the game thing, then I'll use like the 2Ks. But besides that, keep your counter for the characters on the board, because if you're able to keep as many characters on the board as possible, it just makes endgame so much easier, because again, they only have so much they can do. And turns 2 through 4, especially, and also I guess turns 1, 2, depending on your setup. If you're running like the film, you have a search. Again, RP Law, best deck in the game, like early game. There's no deck that can compete with how we're able to remove cards and get characters out. Like if you're playing very, very aggressive and you're able to like keep up with that, especially like Shambles into like the Beppo, Ain, the boys to keep up our Don, that's 2 characters a turn. And there's no deck that can keep up with that, and it's just massive. And being able to steadily attack them, especially once you get them down, the earlier you get them down to 1, the better, because then that forces them to then have to use all their counter in hand to keep the game going, because they have to extend it. They have to get to like that turn 6 and plus to be able to beat you. So if you're able to just do that, managing hand control in this matchup, I feel like is the biggest thing, because again, what we talked about earlier, like 40% of their deck is no counter. All their high Don cards they can't use to counter out. So the lower you're able to keep their hand, the better, because there's only a percentage option of stuff they can do. But then yeah, biggest thing though, end game, I'd say you need at least 3 characters. For me also too, why I love getting the ramp cards is if you're able to operate through that crucial 5 to 7 zone with your Don, especially late game, you have a great shot to beat them. Even if you have like the characters on board, even if you only have the 2, if you have them down to 1, being able to swing consistent like 7k or plus attacks for endgame is massive, because it burns them out of everything in hand. They have to burn minimum 2 cards, so they'd have to have a 2k plus a 1k or 2 2ks based on their deck and stuff like that. So it's just absolutely massive being able to ramp up very quickly and get into our like comfortable operating zone, because again, endgame, if the more characters on the board, just the better. Because even if you're able to get 4 or 5 characters out, you can swing for like 5, and then you have so much down to play with. You can just be unstoppable, and then set them up for like the mathematical like impossibilities where they have to burn their stuff to block your 5Ks, and then if you're able to attack from like 7 or plus or more, they won't be able to beat you. So for me, yeah, going second, probably better, because it just makes it like make them have to get their perfect hand to beat you. On top of the life triggers, like straight up, focus on the stuff that we can control, which is just like making sure they make your opponent have to get like the perfect hand on top of the other factors they need to be able to beat you. And my biggest thing though too is don't take losing to yellow like personal either, because again, the only way they can beat you is if they hit the life lottery and hit the triggers, and that's how they beat everybody. Like even if like Sakazuki can't withstand them getting a bunch of like wacky life triggers, so don't feel bad at all if you lose to them getting multiple life triggers. It's just part of the game. Just like shake it off, move on to the next, because then you're gonna get the games where they don't get the life triggers and you're gonna absolutely body slam them. Like again, yellow decks are fundamentally bad. They are built horribly because so much of the deck does not have like counter. They have like no defense. They have to get to like later turns to be able to win, and the only way for them to get to those later turns is luck based. Like their winning condition is entirely luck based. And if they don't get that, then especially like other yellow matchups, you're playing Katakuri. If they don't get life triggers, you're gonna beat them on like turn 4. It's nuts. Especially you just go wide, and that's why that's also why yellow is the most frustrating, because it's just out of your control. It's like the worst feeling is when they hit those thunderbolts and stuff like that, or like their last trigger is like the Sanji blocker. It's just brutal. But don't take losing to yellow thinking that you're a bad player or anything like that at all, because it's out of your control. Like whether you win or lose is just out of your control. It's just RNG luck based, and especially if you lose to your opponent hitting just silly triggers, you can't do anything about it. Like I've lost to Enel because they gotten multiple thunderbolts in their life. Like you can't prepare for that. So don't take losing to yellow thinking that you're like a bad player or anything like that at all, because again, yellow, that's the only way they can win. It's the only way they beat anyone. Like Sakazuki, like mirror yellow matchups, like Whitebeard, Zoro, like any of those games, like matchups, they have to hit life triggers to win. So if you feel bad losing yellow, like don't worry, because you're like not alone. Like no matter what other deck is facing them, they lose the same way. It's based on life triggers. So definitely don't take it personal. Don't think you're a bad player or anything like that, and just keep on pushing and just keep on doing. Again, put yourself in the best chance to win. Put yourself in the position where your opponent needs to get the life triggers. They need to get those like the busted thunderbolts to beat you. And if you're putting yourself in that position, you're going to get the opportunities and stuff where they don't get the life triggers, and then you just beat them easy. And it's super, super satisfying. And for me, again, playing like this, no matter what build I'm using, just being able to go wide with the characters and prioritize board control, I just don't care about my life, because again, I expect to lose turn, like, if we don't win by turn 5, max turn 6, I expect to lose anyways. If they're going to attack my life, I'm fine with that. I do not mind at all. Prioritize the board control, keep as many characters on the board as possible, so you can win on that turn 5, turn 6 with attacking them. Because the more characters you have, the more opportunities you're going to have, and then paying attention to just the cards in hand is the keys. Because again, you just want to put yourself in the position to beat them and leave it the rest of the game up to chance. And if you're able to play like that and take away all the other conditions and stuff, then you're gonna get the luck on your side as well. So, but yeah, for me, playing like that, go wide as possible, as quick as possible, just be relentless. And we're built again off in Sakazuki, expecting to get removal. So we want to just keep up the same pressure, keep on bringing out bodies, and depending on your build and stuff, getting Kid ace out. So, don't be afraid to play a little slow, especially like turn 2 if you need to drop Ain to ramp up so you can get the turn 3 to drop a ace or kid and go from there. So yeah, that's like the overall breakdown. A whole lot of yapping out of me, so different format with not having like the gameplay and stuff, but like tied in with Sakazuki. But I feel like if I did that with Enel, it doesn't work as well because it's just luck based and it's hard to again use any kind of statistical like probability stuff when a lot of so much is like out of your control. So I just want to set up like this, and then we'll get into the games next of me showing you no matter what build you use, if you're able to just again go wide, prioritize board control, you can beat these guys and just leave it up to where they need to get the life shenanigans. So yeah, thank you guys if you've made it this far and stuff. Listen to me yap about all this stuff, trying to go into as much detail as possible, if especially if you're like new to RP Law. And yeah, overall you just got to put the time in, learn like what you need to do to beat these guys. And once you get used to it though, and take out the elements of just the stuff you can control, you're going to be a lot more successful against yellow, just because again, against any deck, if you just make it so they have to have their perfect stuff to beat you, you're going to win more games than not, because just based on like card games in general, there's only so many options they can have. So yeah, thank you guys for all this, the little breakdown, and yeah, let's get into some games. Alright, so here we go. We're going second, which is pretty big, because again, we want to just limit their options and stuff they can do. If you're running search, being able to drop your search is pretty massive early game if you're doing film. However, they're straight up attacking us, which is we're fine with. Obviously, take that. So now all of our 4 costs are safe if they get Gadatsu and whatnot. And also gives us the info that they probably don't have it. So you're going to want to attack first, just in case they get any life trigger nonsense they decide to counter out, which is interesting. I would not really expect that, just because again, that gives us like more info. So drop Ain, get us up to 5, and then we're gonna go down, bring in Beppo. So now we have 2 characters out. We're still at 3 Don, which is pretty cool. And then next turn we'll be at the 5. So they drop Ohm and Holly, which is again what we talked about is kind of their only dangerous thing. They're gonna attack us, which is fine. So now we need to deal with board control first, and we have the options here. Ohm is pretty big because Ohm's kind of the exception of you want to remove Ohm before they get down to like that 2 life, because if we attack first, they might just take the life, and then Ohm will be at 6k, which is a big problem based on what we have in our hand. And since we have like the Film Law, we want to throw down Film Law, get Ohm down. So now he's just at the 3k, so he's in range, and let's just get rid of him right away. So get him out of here. We're gonna bring in a blocker, depending on like what you're running at this stage. It doesn't super matter, so I'm gonna bring in Law blocker for now, because I like to keep Uta for Endgame. And then obviously Beppo, you want to attack, and we get them to counter out again, which is wild. So now we're gonna throw Ain at them, and they finally take a life. See what they get. Alright, they get Capone trigger, which is annoying, but it leaves us with 1, and we have Rad Beam, and we're already at 2, meaning we're sitting kind of nice with it. So they throw down another Bruley blocker. So based on how they're playing, what that tells me, and based on how this is going, is they straight up don't have some of the big hitters. So they're attacking 8 on 5, which is massive for us because we have Rad Beam. Block that. And now their only option is to do this, and I'm going to make the play here. Again, board control, board control, board control, big thing. And we now have 4 guys out. Their blocker is in range, and we have a bunch of options we can kind of play with here. So we can just drop this. We have Fire Fist. Get that out of here. Now I'm at 3, and a bunch of stuff we can do here. We'll attack again. The 6 on 5, see what they do here, because now we're putting them into kind of a bit of a blend here. We got them down to 3 cards in hand, which again, based on the numbers and stuff of their deck, benefits us because there's only so many options they can do. So we'll attack them again, see what they do. They're thinking about it, so they take the hit there. So now I have a bunch of stuff we can do. We will attack again. I'm keeping the 2 for our other Fire Fist in case they get some shenanigans. And since I didn't get any shenanigans there, we'll attack them again, 7 on 5. So we get them down to the 1 life because I want to make sure we get that. And based on how they were playing, they went for it early, and countering out is massive. And so I'm going to go for it, and we'll use our ability. We'll bring in an Uta blocker. So now I have 2 blockers ready to go. And at this stage of the game, they like have to drop Yamato, and if they drop Yamato, they only can, so drop Yamato, go to 2, and their only option is to, they only can launch a 5. We have the counter in hand, and now I have full board of characters that we can attack with, and we're at 5 Don, which again, if you get 5 to 7 is massive. A lot of stuff we can do because Yamato is not a blocker, and based on the info we have in their hand and how they're kind of playing this, is they are counting on to hit some life triggers to be able to bail them out here. So throwing everything down, going from there, we'll attack, get our 1 with Beppo, do the little 6 on 5. This again, make it so they have to burn a 2k if they're going to do it. I'm just going to attack 5 on 5 because this is kind of like the setup turn. I want to drain them out of everything in hand, which is pretty big, and now we'll attack the 7. Put the pressure on them. Because again, I'm feeling like they don't have too much in hand here to be able to counter out. So they go to the 1. We'll attack again, 7 on 5. Now that this puts them in the pressure where they have to counter out. So we get them back down to 3 cards, and I have 2 life, so we're gonna just use our blockers to attack. And so we'll attack them again. Then we're fine with that. We'll attack them again with Uta. So we get them down to 1 card. Obviously, didn't get what we wanted, and they got like the bonus little life there. But again, options limited. They play Yamato, go to 2. All they can do here is attack with 6, and fortunately, we don't have a way to counter out. But again, we're still okay with this because they only have 1 card in hand, so there's straight up just not a whole lot they can do. To attack Ain, which is interesting. I feel like and we get Zoro. All right, it's like massive. Zoro is the late game, just like finish your card. There's nothing they can really do here. They only have 1 card. We'll lead off with Beppo because I have Zoro in the back pocket, the knowledge, and they need to hit life triggers right here. So now, based on that, they didn't counter out. I'm gonna take the guarantee hit. It's a 7 on 5. See what they get, if they get anything, and they do not. So now we're gonna do this again on. We'll just be a little bit safe here. Launch a 7 on 5 here, which is pretty massive. They take it, and now they don't know we have Zoro. So we're gonna kind of set things up. I'm just gonna swing force them to burn a card here. So now we get to use our ability, bring in Zoro, and it is mathematically impossible for them to counter out of this even if they have 2 2Ks. 9 on 5, nothing they can do. GG's, we get them. Tuck them to bed with their Zoro. That is my favorite move in the game, is when you have Zoro in hand and you get to attack with some 7Ks and stuff, and then use those Don, then bring in Zoro, and whatever other active Don you have is just a massive attack. So yeah, there we go. And again, in hand, they have the Big Mom Katakuri, which is just dead. They can't use for counter. And based on how they're playing, if your opponent plays like that and you counter out early, then the only way they can beat you is life triggers. Because again, if you're able to manage the hand control, that is their only option, is getting life triggers to be able to beat you. And it's massive. It's huge. Hand control is how you beat yellow. Make it so the only way they have a shot is with the life lottery. And very beneficial for us there, the end game, because again, we came out on the right side of it. They got the Capone early, but late game, they didn't get anything, and because their decks are just top heavy, if they don't get any of the life triggers late game, we're going to win. And especially you saw how relentless we were. We had 5 characters on the board. They options limited because they have to spend so much Don dropping their boss cards, meaning they can't attack for high attacks with their leader. Allows you to protect what's on the board. And also vice versa, not caring about them attacking your life is big, because you have to make it so they have to attack the characters on the board. That's their only option if they're going to be able to beat you, is they have to keep up. But they weren't able to in this matchup, even though they dropped 2 Yamatos. We're built because again, based on the percentages of their deck, there's only so many options, and they only had a couple cards in hand, and we are very, very favored in that scenario. And yeah, there is this kind of textbook go second and put the pressure on them and taking out Enel. All right, jumping into another one here. Again, we're getting to go second, which is big, and we already have Ain to Ace. I'm feeling great. We have Sanji as well, so dropping your Sanji tech if you're running Sanji, going like second is massive. So now we have Sanji already on the board established, and they are swinging, which gives us the info and stuff as well. And massive, we get the boys too, so now we can be pretty aggressive. In this build, running things a little different. This is the aggro kind of 5C Luffy build that I got, but show you guys how this goes. So yeah, again, you want to attack first, just in case they get any wacky life trigger stuff. They do not. So I'm going to just drop Ain just on the regular, get us up to 5, and then we'll use Sanji's ability here. Make sure all of our stuff is safe. We're attacking them 7 on 5, which is pretty big, because they already took the 1. They take another one, and turn 2, we have them down to 2 life, which is crazy, but they get the Sanji blocker cheese. But it is what it is. We can't really control that. So turn 3, options limited. Again, Holly, or Gadatsu, really their only play. Unless they have another Sanji blocker. That's it. That is the only cards. And they throw down Gadatsu, and that means Sanji's gone. But we're okay with that, because Sanji did his job. Now all of our 3 and 4 cost characters are safe. And their attacking is 5 on 5. We have a bunch of cards in hand. I don't really need Zoro at this point, so we'll use him to counter out. And now we're setting things up. And why this is big is we're at 7. So that means Ace is coming in, and we're going to want to drop Ace. They're at 2. If we can get them down to 1 life this turn, then it's massive. So we get -3, -3. And what I want to do is, this is kind of just a play of, I want them to value their blocker there. So we're going to attack and try to get them to sack their blocker, so then I get guaranteed. So we put them in a trap, basically, where they have to take the life or use stuff to counter out or sack their blocker here. And it's pretty we got a good setup on them, like what I'm trying to say. So we get them down to 1 on turn 3, which is nuts. So they keep up their blocker, and we're down to 4. So obviously the boys at this point in this stage become like the 2K counters, because we're at the 4. But we have a couple little options here. I'm going to throw down Uta, just because if they try anything silly to attack, because they're at 7, so they only can do, if they run Big Mom NL, that's like their own options here, unless they have another like Sanji blocker or something. But all right, they're playing Amaru. All right, so they're running the event. This allows them to rest Uta, which is okay, because that means now they can't play any of their 7 cost characters, so that we're still looking good. So they can attack though, however, for free, which obviously they gotta attack Uta here. But with Uta, like, bring out Uta, why that is so big is because we forced them into needing to use like Amaru there, because if they would have attacked, then we rest Sanji, and then next turn we don't have to worry about removing Sanji. So why the Uta play and why I love Uta is it just forces, and they're going for it. Okay, so this means they're desperate. So this is massive. They're only doing 8 on 5. So the boys are now the 2K counter, because we're operating in the 5 to 7 zone. So we are fine with sacking both of them. And now we're looking pretty great. So we have 6. We got them down to 1. They have a lot of cards in hand. So this is going to be, we need to wear them out here. They left 1, which means they may have the L Thor counter, but that is the only counter that they run. So we'll see. We're just going to have to go for it, and let's see what they do. So we'll just lead 7-5. They either burn 2 cards, or if they have the L Thor, use that right here. Because based on our hand and stuff, we have film law, so we can regardless get rid of Sanji. So if they take the life hit, all right, which is pretty big. See if they get any shenanigans though. This is where so they get Capone, meaning can't attack with Ain, so that sucks. So now we can't win the game here, but they sacked that. So again, based on the info, we're just gonna do the same thing though, and because we can keep up on the board control regardless of the outcome of what happens here. Again, this is part of the game. The life triggers happen, so they are countering out. So we get, which is big. We love that. So now I'm going to drop Film Law and plop it on Sanji. We'll use our ability. So Sanji's out of here. Bring in. So where we're at, we're still at the 2 life. I'm sitting at 3 again. We want as much down as possible to be able to go for the kill shot. But depending on what you're feeling, there's 2 plays. You could bring in Uta, or I'm gonna go with Ain, just because I have 2 life. The only card they can attack is Ace, and where they're sitting at with Don, yeah, see, they drop Yamato, and even though they get up to the 2, I'm fine with that because their only option is this. Like, they only can attack. And just to preserve the game, depending on the life trigger stuff, I'm going to use Zoro there, counter out. And they just give up, which is, we're fine with that. So, not a whole lot of that just won us the game. Because looking again at their hand, top heavy, they have no counter. And even they're not getting any of the bailout life triggers either. So that is sick for us because we're attacking them with 5 characters. They only have 2. They don't have the counter to block out anything, and I'm going to be sitting at 6 Don as well, and that means basically just all 7k attacks. And since we used our last turn to wipe them down and get out of the cards in hand, they're like counters in hand. It's so big. It's such a massive thing, and even that they dropped the Yamato to get the 2 again, it put them in the spot where they could only attack the leader 5k. So it allows you to then counter out of anything that they're able to do, and yeah, based on stuff in hand and everything like that, there's just nothing to do. And yeah, being able to just see that stuff, and obviously we're on the right side of the life triggers. Obviously though, if I was Enel, I'm never quitting just because like you don't know what's in the life and that wins you the game. But obviously we got our opponent rattled with the counter there, and things are worked out for us. Because again, next turn, I'm blasting them with Ace 7k, Ain 7k, Law 7k. Like, we're going at it. We have 5 attacks. We just got to hit them. Again, we need 4 of the 5 to convert. So, and since we kept up on hand control, got rid of their 2k counters and stuff like that, made it through, forced them into the Amaru play with the Uta blocker. And yeah, it's just what you want to do is, like, make your opponent, like, force them into situations where if they're going to beat you, like, make it so that you know what they have to drop to beat you. And it's just big there. And putting it in situations where, again, they're super down dependent, making it so if they have to use the Amaru, then they can't drop a 7 cost. Stuff like that is big. Because, again, in hand, their 7 cost higher cards do not have counter, and there's nothing they can do to stop you. And it's just super, super satisfying. Obviously, though, in this one, again, Ain to Ace, just massive, going second. Ace on turn 3, there's not much that anyone's going to be able to do to stop you unless they get like god life triggers. But yeah, that is us beating Enel with the Ain to Ace little go around and a different little deck build. So let's keep on moving. All right, we're playing against Enel here. We got Sanji, so we're gonna go for it. We just need to get some we need to draw some characters and stuff. And we'll see how this goes. So they're going to attack us 8 on 5. We're okay with that. All right, we get Law, which is fine. And we get Beppo, which is also fine. So how do I want to go about this? I'll throw down 1 search. We'll grab... Yeah, let's grab Film Law for right now. So that leaves me at 3. So we will attack him once. 5 on 5. All right. Okay, cool. They didn't get any wacky triggers, which is sick. So now I'm going to throw down Zoro, attack him again. Dang it. Well, that's annoying. So there goes that. But, I mean, take that over a character, I guess. But we would have had them on the limit there. And yeah, of course they get that. But I mean, fine with that out of all things considered. So we're now out of range. So I'm sitting here. Deploy Gordo. Do that. So get them into range. So that leaves me with 5. How do we want to go? How do we want to do this? Because where they're at 7. So let's go crazy with it. We'll do that. We get rid of 2 of their cards. We got rid of Thunderbolt and Amaru there. Leaves me with 1 as well. So I'll attack them. 5 on 5. And then if okay, we got them down to the 1. Alright, massive. We'll go 1, 2, 3. Go to this guy. Bring in Beppo here. Leaves us with 1 for a rad beam. And depending what, so they're at 7. So if they attack me directly, dang it, that was going to be my ace in the hole there. Let's just rad beam that. Alright, we get another Gordon, which means I can get this guy out and then bring in Uta, and I can bring out this. So we can launch some attacks here. So I'm at 5, they're at 7. And so let's just launch 1. See what they do. So take 1. Okay, Wimpy Hoshi. And then they gotta put something else over here. Okay. So they do that. So now I can deploy Gordo. Do that on this guy again. So what should I do here though? Because I kind of want to... I have 2 life to mess around with. I'm going to get rid of this guy regardless. So I'm going to launch this and get them to probably counter out. Okay, so 2 different options of what we can do here. Do I want to go bodies and go for it all next turn? Because if they drop Yamato, then I'd have to hit him 3 times. Well, I can keep this guy up. So that might be the better play. So yeah, let's deploy this. We'll just do it down here. But regardless, I'll launch another attack. They're going to be at 9, so if they drop Yamato, I can block out of any attack here. Okay, interesting. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. Get rid of this. I'll bring in Uta. Then we'll do that. So now they're at 9. Like Katakuri, Yamato, no matter which one they do, I can stop. And then, I mean, not stop that, but stop the attack, you know. So they're attacking that. So I can do this. Now they have 8. So Katakuri, they do that. Alright. So we still have a chance here. I have the 5. I could put it on there if I need it. So we know they have this in their life for one of them. And, alright. So let's just launch that. So 5 on 5. So they block that, which is fine. So I'll launch a 7 on 5. Make sure they take this. Alright, and then they'll draw a couple and all that kind of stuff. Alrighty, so then I'll throw 2 on me. We'll attack them. Again, 7 on 5. Okay, so we get them down. And then... yeah, let's just go for it. Okay, so now I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. Get this out of here. Bring in Uta. Replace that, and then I have 2. They're gonna be at 10. So let me swing again. Okay, so their options got to be limited with what they can do here. So even if they attack this, if they play Yamato, okay, cool. They didn't have anything. Sick. Because, yeah, even if they... I mean, it's very interesting that they didn't play their life more aggressive, though. Like, keeping it at the 1, they could have totally did that. But, I mean, a win against Enel with the film build, we'll take it. I'm having a pretty good time with the film build. I'm not gonna lie. You can, just because with the added of the search, it just helps us find other characters, and we can just get out bodies so quick, and it's really helping in my matches against yellow a lot. I'm not gonna lie, but because now we have like 2 main things we can go against them with the film style is again getting bodies out, or if you got like the Ain to ace early too, it's just pretty effective. Obviously, one of our aces were here, so it wasn't going to be too ideal. But yeah, that is complete kind of game. And playing around, just again, you got to try to. It's hard to do, and luckily we got the 2K counters, which is also what is sick with the search, because late game, like we just have so many 2Ks, and being able to counter and play off their cards is super cool, because it makes it so we can kind of block anything and keep our characters alive a little bit more. Because again, all of their main cards in NL are like the high dons, so that then drops them down out of their stuff. And even again, what I thought they had Yamato, so if they would have dropped Yamato, gone to the 1, they would have only been able to attack 6, so we would have been able to keep something up, and then obviously we would have lost one card. But next turn they would have been at the 1. I mean, it would have been close. So I have the 2Ks. I think they were just trying to, I don't know. Even if they, I guess we were fine, even if they would have countered out there to keep themselves at the 1, because they didn't have anything to really go to this turn. But yeah, that is beating Enel with my film build. But again, overall, it doesn't really matter like what art law build you use. Like, you can get the job done. It's like, it's a hard matchup no matter what. Like, this was still tough, and even though I was like in my head expecting the Yamato, so we got lucky with them not doing that. But that is just like kind of, again, trying to pick up on stuff going on with all that. So why'd they trash Yamato? Okay, that's all right. And they trash Rush Enel. All right, interesting plays out of them. And they got rid of like the ohms, not trying to hit the ohm Holly. But I guess it was from the Wimpy Hoshi going on. So they needed it. They were just in desperation, freaking out, trying to get the 2K counters. But yeah, victory over NL, and regardless, we'll take it either way, any kind of way we can get it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.